Moses.
Hey, sister friends. I am Tanya Burke, your host of We on the Table. And today we have another great episode in season one. I said it, we're in season one. And today I have a great friend, sister friend of the show. She is a regular sister friend of the show. And I have Denise Hughley-Brunson. And when I say good friend, like Denise and I are like real good friends. Like we went to college together, mischievous all over the campus together, wrecking stuff all over the campus together, doing that black girl magic all over the campus together. And Denise, I like to call her the diva of social psychology because I'm telling you, this girl, she drops that psychological commentary on all the different subjects that's going on in this world like nobody's business. And so I have her here today, and she and I are just having girlfriend chit chat, talking about the things that's happening in our communities. All righty. Hey everyone. Hey sister friends. Welcome back to another episode of We Own the Table, where you do not have to beg, borrow, or steal a position at the table. You have a seat and you're welcome to sit. Today, as I mentioned earlier, I have my sister friend Denise Hughley-Brunson here with me today. And when I say sister friend, I mean like she's really a sister friend. Like I've been knowing Denise for uh my goodness, like too many years to count. We actually went to school together. We went to UC Santa Cruz, and we both attended at the same time. And Denise has always been a no nonsense powerhouse. She is one of those that tell it like a TI is, and she just was always the person that one thing I greatly appreciated about Denise. Denise was she wasn't a resource hogger. She was one of those people, y'all know how I feel about resource hoggers. I can't stand them. But she was just one of those people who genuinely rooted for, pushed, encouraged, mentored, guided, educated, whatever it is that she had to give, she graciously did for many folks in our community, and especially Black women. And so I felt it was very fitting for her to be here with a seat at the table because she has built many tables for many sister friends to be at. And so I am so blessed and thankful to have Denise here today. And so how has everything been going, Denise? How have you been weathering this COVID storm, COVID-19 pandemic? What has been going on? I mean, every day is something.
Girl, for real. When I'm asked that question, I tend to say, I have not killed anybody, and I have not allowed anybody to kill me. And sometimes that is like that's as good as it'll get.
I
Uh,
hear you on that because sometimes I'm like, okay, if this as long as they don't come, if they ain't trying to get no attempted murder charges, I'm all right.
right, right. If you don't come for me, then
Don't
you
come for
know,
me unless I send
right.
for you.
Right. Don't bring none if you don't want none. It's just I am one, I'm way past the point where I am bullshit intolerant. I'm just, past that point. And I think that it's definitely it's it's been hard finding uh, the silver lining in the black cloud of pestilence of this. Um, and then, so, but for me, the, it has not been so isolating as maybe it has been for some other people, because one, I like my own company. I you know I I have gotten to know Denise, uh, and she's all right, and I have you know gotten to uh, delve more into some uh, maybe some introspection, and and some uh, and practice more self care. And I do mean practice because I am learning still that that whole technique, that whole concept is really new to me.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad you brought up the whole, it's not so isolating for you, and you having some time for reflection because, there's been times where I've kind of felt a little bad because, I'll look on social media or, kind of that's kind of the only way that our only eyes view out into the world of what's happening with other people these days is through social media or some form of technology, such as this. And sometimes I felt a little bad because I've seen some people who I know, who I love, friends and colleagues, and they have been having a really tough time. And then I've just felt like, oh my goodness, like is there something wrong? Like because I am naturally an introvert, so, I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies, but I love being alone. I love being like this isolation, or I don't even call it isolation, this time of solitude. I have really enjoyed because, like you said, you've been able to learn a little bit more about yourself. And, I just love if there's opportunities for me to just sit at home. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything. I don't have anything on my agenda except for maybe read a book. I mean, so those are the things that I've truly, loved about what's kind of happened during this pandemic. But minus the fact of people getting sick and people dying. But I've kind of felt bad sometimes, and plus, you said you've been doing self-care, child. I've been on the eating frenzy, and I ain't even gonna tell how much weight I've gained. I got the COVID neck, as you see. I got the hot dog fingers and the Vienna sausage toes. So, so I don't know about the self. I don't think I've gotten the self care part.
there's some facet of maybe some self indulgence that could be considered self care, but
I like that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that.
but not, you know, not to the point of self harm. If we're moving into self harm, we need to, we need to pull it back. Like my sister likes to say, she's like, if your panties too tight, you need to get right.
Oh, see, okay, why you see y'all ain't even gotta be
they,
putting your business out on the street like that.
they,
You ain't
that,
even gotta be
that,
talking
that's
about my
just,
drawers, okay?
that's
Y'all
just,
ain't
that's just your personal evaluation. Don't nobody else need to know that. That's your personal, kind of like your internal check and balance. You know that. I don't have to necessarily know that. Even being one of your besties, you know, I don't have to, but you know that. So, but I do know that just before the whole the whole COVID thing like really like fell down, um, I I had just uh, kind of like just started. I was kind of having like a flare up, and one of the things is I was really starting to get concerned about myself because I was going longer and longer periods of of kind of not going out and not feeling well and um, just feeling really a, a deep malaise and I know that some of it was, well, not just some of it, a lot of it was uh, still behind the loss of my dad, and I was just uh, still really just processing and actually just it just like hitting me, and so then COVID came along and it all of a sudden made something that was uh, a non-normative behavior, an abnormal behavior, a questionable behavior, uh, safe, a safe behavior, a healthy behavior, and encouraged behavior because I was definitely high risk, because I was definitely, immune compromised and, all of that. So now I'm doing what I'm doing is protective. And really, one of the things that I came to in this process was really what I was doing before that was um, my own internal way of doing that anyway, but um, we as Black women, we as mothers, we as sisters, we as daughters, if we pull back, if we make ourselves unavailable, if we put ourselves first, if we, then that automatically, the way that we're socialized, the way that it's modeled for us, that makes us not good daughters, not good wives, not good mothers,
So
and
how do we as
so
Black women get over that? Like how do we change that?
I I have to honestly say one of the biggest positive examples for me in helping me adjust my learning curve was my youngest daughter, and has been my my millennial nieces, and uh, they, even though uh, I know that my sisters and my sisters by marriage uh, are more like me in the in that same way of putting our family and putting our loved ones needs before us, because that that's what we saw, that's how we were brought up, and so, but our daughters, they they do it better. They have found a way uh, to do it. They've found a way to, maybe it's true. Maybe it's true that the millennials are uh, a little more self-absorbed, and maybe that that came from us investing uh, that that model. Uh, don't do, don't do this. Maybe us investing that in them allow them to be fortified to want to continue to invest that in themselves. And I don't, but yeah, I would have to say the biggest um, reality check and the biggest mentor in the beginning of learning about how to self care was my youngest daughter, Mickey. Um, she, as far as learning that to put my mask on first, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, hearing that and not really understanding, it was so counter to everything I'd always learned and knew and was modeled and saw, both in community and home and congregation. It was counter to everything, you know. And so
And
and
that's
then
that's true.
um,
That's true
but
because
at a period of
when I think about my kids, you're right. That age, they're in this kind of the same age group, whatnot, or a little younger or whatnot. But these younger folks, it's like it's not that they're, I try not to use the word selfish. It's not like they're selfish, but they're like, I love me, I love you too, but I definitely love me, and I'm gonna make sure I take care of me, which is, it seems like that's a when we talk
I
about
think it's not
millennials.
the negative connotation of it. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we, we talk about, oh, the like you said, it's negative, but it actually, we taught them to be that way. We taught them, hey, shoot for what you want, do what you want, get what you
Right.
want, and then they do it, and it's like they get a bad
Stand
rap for
up for yourself,
self.
you know,
So, one of the things that we've been,
especially wanting that for our daughter.
yeah, yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I think it's very important, especially as them being young black women. It's very important for them that to get that and get it early. But I'm glad that they are making sure that they're taken care of first.
And I'm learning that that when when I had to start going to a support group for for uh, survivors, uh, and for cancer survivors, and one of the therapists, she was kept asking me this question that just, it bugged me, and she was like, well, what do you want? How does, you know what will make you happy? What what what'll happen if you don't? And and it was, around that time, discovering a dust bunny will not actually kill someone. It will, it's never in the history of time has a dust bunny ever caused been listed as a cause of death. you know for anyone, and um, and neither has if I said no, and um, then some lessons are harder to learn, and some lessons take longer to stick, and um, sometimes you just don't have a frame of reference, and then if you're blessed to live long enough and then get your aha moment, then and I think that going back to the COVID thing, it's just it's been really heartbreaking to see one more thing that's been visited upon um, our community, our families, that if the rest of the world gets a splinter, then we get a fucking plank. We get a tree. If they get a cold, we get pneumonia. And then the pre-existing underlying conditions and that were already under addressed or unaddressed, and that were contributed to by both um, geosocial and geopolitical and structural and health and social uh, and racial inequalities and health inequalities, that just all um, COVID did was re-expose, like all blights do, like all weaknesses do, where societies, uh, where their real priorities are, what they really feel and don't feel, how they, like it it matches it matches it matches it tells the truth.
Yeah.
It tells the truth. It reveals the truth. It strips away all the the veneer that that society has whitewashed, and I mean that literally, whitewashed to how they want you to believe they, and maybe some of them do, but if your words, if I, me as a person, if what you say and what you do, if they don't match, if they're incongruent, I'm going to go by what you do.
Yeah.
And COVID has really put on Front Street what what America, what society really thinks about Black people, poor people, uh, people of color. And I make a distinction. Yes, Black people are people of color, but Black people are separate and distinct because even still in this day and age, Black Americans are the most stigmatized ethnic minority in this country still.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And with the whole COVID and how it's been handled, or not handled, um, and just, it's like you said, it's like this tell-all book that has come out and it has exposed everything. Now, of course, these are things that we already, as a people, most of us have
right,
already known, but it's like, how they say you catch people in their dirty draws. And that's exactly kind of what has happened with this whole, the COVID has exposed this, and when it came to the whole in terms of the black community and the brown community too. But when they first start, listing off, okay, here are the conditions that you have to worry about. If you get, I'll say, shoot, I got at least three or four. I didn't checked off at least three or four of them on the list, and I was like, I don't know a black person that I personally know that has not checked off on that list, that doesn't have at least one item, one ailment, one, disease, one whatever that's on that list that makes them more susceptible. And I was like, man.
And because some of them are, um, because some of the conditions um, are predisposed genetically, predisposed hereditarily, yes, they are exacerbated and can even be uh, just like they can be precipitated by environment. And by environment, I mean uh, diet and home environment, all of those things. That's what I mean when I'm talking. Those things can be precipitated, but also the environment um, that are beyond those that community or that those people or our control. If you are, if you live in, they like to call them food deserts, but if you live in communities where there are food deserts, where there's a 7-Eleven or a liquor store on every corner, but there isn't a grocery store, there isn't a farmer's market, there isn't uh, there aren't these things, and um, and you're you're living in places where now um, the the dynamics and the structures of how people used to live and how they are able to live now because of economics, because of uh, the changing demographies of neighborhoods, and what's available in food, and um, the lack of education, um, and people do what they know to do, and they do with what what's available to them. And then you populate these communities with Popeyes and KFC and McDonald's and Burger King, and then the intermediary businesses are all filled with mom and pop uh, uh, foods food shops that cater to the cultural and community foods of familiarity. Um, and cheap foods, filling foods, are not necessarily and usually healthy foods. And to introduce poor people to foods that the commercialism corporate wants you to have, they make them cheap first. So processed food is cheap to introduce you to it. It's salty, it's fatty, it's addictive, and all of this, and they make it available and accessible and cheap, and then you and convenient, and it's just like there are all these mitigating factors, and then they say, well, they're killing their own self, they're doing this and they're doing that, but If you have a they're doing 9 times out of 10 the best they know how to do. Um, a lot of things I look back on, and it's funny because you know that I've always cooked, and I always cooked, and I've always um, I always prepared a lot of from scratch meals, and it was not even because I was uh, a purist of some kind, despite being at UC Santa Cruz and what you know what was going on there. But it was budget driven. I could control budget. I could control um, my food budget. I have 4 kids, you
Mm-hmm.
know, to
And
feed.
I totally relate to that. And, and like you were saying, when I was in Santa Cruz, I definitely didn't, at that time, didn't appreciate all the health and the wellness all around because, it was real, uh,
Hippie.
the foodie was real. The food was real foodie. It was it was that foodie. Everybody was vegan or vegetarian and eating tofu and I was when I got there I was like what the nuts and fruits is a doggone tofu it's like what is this bland and then when I ate I was like who in the hell would put cardboard on my plate and then throw some sauce on top of it and call it a orange uh, freaking or whatever because it's not
Right.
orange chicken but and having evolved from that and then come into the community I live in, that was, when I was serving on city council, that was one of the major concerns that I have because we live in the food desert. The closest grocery store to us maybe it's about 5, 6 miles away. It's like going on, we got to go into town, to go and get the things that we need but nearby everything is high in fat, high in calories, high in sodium, high in all of those things but not very nutritious. Mostly all of the places around us where you can get a meal is fast food and it's like you said the cheap, the full process, and there's rarely I don't see very many places for us just nearby where you can get fruits and vegetables. So if you don't have transportation you fall into that category, and that's why the city in which I live there is a high rate of people with diabetes and especially among children. So when I sat on the city council, one of the big things that I was really pushing was gardening. Was we created a community garden, and then we got funding to spread the gardens out to the schools in the community, so the communities can go to the schools and the kids learn about gardening and know okay there's healthier alternatives. And then people started saying oh well we want to put gardens in our home in the backyards of our home, so we taught them how to do those things. So to try to combat the the backlash that comes from, like you said, this socioeconomic, uh to me it feels very intentional
It feels
of
very
how these
intentional.
communities in these neighborhoods are set up this way. Because I tell my husband all the time, I was like, please write the list before you go to the store, because if you forget something on the list, it's like, oh my goodness, because
It's a
all we
trap.
have around us is liquor stores, AM/PM marts and fast food. So there's nowhere like I can go and get, I want to go get a fresh zucchini or, hell, even an apple. So you're right, and it's a detriment to our communities because in these communities it's black and brown people, and
Right.
and like I said, there's the gamut of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and all the things that gets associated with those conditions, and then all the things that's associated with the backlash of taking the medications to treat those conditions. So it's like with this whole
and
health
stepping it forward
system.
even in that. Um, the places that people in those communities live, they already know they're going to have a higher incident of asthma, of having COPD, of having, for a lot of reasons. One, they uh, they smoke menthol cigarettes. They smoke cigarettes, period. They live in areas that were reclaimed, that where they either had a lot of factories or they were reclaimed where they were landfills or oil fields or industrial waste or close to questionable uh, sites that were developed. Um, and it so then you can see those clusters of areas where you have children that were born with, these huge rates of asthma. And then you see the correlation between other autoimmune diseases, um, and, and that are prevalent in the Black community, lupus, and then that, and then the ties with uh, hypertension and that go along with diabetes, and then most of the time, um, it, we're we just know that we have all these family members with diabetes, but we don't actually know that whether they have type 1 or type 2. We've always just assumed it was type 2, but only to find out that um, it might be type 1. Then that's a whole different uh, lifetime of care, and but it still doesn't take away what they have as far as nutrition and prenatal care, and seeing a perinatologist if they have a higher incident. For instance, Latinas, Hispanic moms have a higher likelihood to have gestational diabetes, you know, and to continue to have diabetes after it doesn't remit, you know. So when you look at those things, and but then they they're given nutritional counseling, but they aren't given access and resource to to the nutrition, so they end up still eating the food that they can eat to feed their family, and to understand that sometimes, then you have to factor in cultural competency in all of the things that you're doing, because you have to understand that food is not food is the one thing that, unlike if you have a problem with anything else, you have to eat.
Yeah,
You know,
you can't get around that.
you
That you
know.
can't do.
I mean, you can, but you go in. That's a whole nother conversation about a whole nother problem. And again, still circling back around to what COVID ends up exposing, and seeing the billboards, especially in our community. We're in this together. Maybe we are, but some of us are in it more than others. And some of us are carrying more of the burden than others. And we are not sharing the load for being in it the same way. So saying we're in it together is not, that's like saying the people on the Titanic, they were on it, that ship together, but they weren't all in it together. You know, it wasn't a shared unilateral experience.
No,
And neither is this.
that's a great point because it was almost like, and I reach out to other folks. I say, okay, tell me if I'm in my feelings. Tell me if I am seeing or feeling something different. But the moment that they started reporting out in terms of COVID, the
I know.
moment they start saying, oh, it's black folks mostly dying from this. It's brown, black and brown, Latinos and black folks
78%
who
of the children that die are black and Hispanic kids. So,
but the moment they said
mhm,
that, it was like, oh well, it's that this a black and a brown thing. Open up, let's open these stores back up. Let's go back
they're
to normal. Forget these
defensible.
masks. Before it was,
They're
oh my goodness, woe
expendable.
is me. We're dying. We're dying. And then as soon as the conversation was had, it was like as soon as they had that press conference and saying, "Oh my goodness, black people are dying. It's the black people that are dying. The black people are dying. The black and the brown people are dying." It was like, okay, let's go back to normal. This a they thing, like everything else is a their thing. So let them
like
manage and deal
like
whatever they got to
like
deal
the
with.
opioid addiction, like the opioid crisis. Okay, opioids are the same drugs, but nobody was doing anything but criminalizing when the crack epidemic hit the black communities,
Girl,
right? When
don't even get me started on that
heroin,
conversation. Don't even
okay,
don't even get me
okay,
started on
I'm
that one.
sorry, but they're sisters, okay? And when they all running down talking about oh, these rappers and these hip hop guys and they're addicted to that syrup, opioids. Those are opioids. That's, that's, so why is it, you know why, and I'm not knocking anybody's suffering. I'm just saying, you know, uh
Put the same effort with our
I'm
community
gonna need to
that
see
you're
that
doing with
same
other
energy.
communities.
I'm gonna need to see that same energy, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna need you to stand in your truth and say, well, that's because we don't give a fuck about y'all. And it only matters because it's the problem is in white. But when it's in black, we don't give a fuck. We don't care. I'm gonna need you to stand in that truth and say that, or shut up. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And and so what? That's how I feel, because either you call it out and claim it all, you know, and then I could respect it, you know, um, or shut up, shut up, don't tell me about it, y'all talk among yourselves, uh, y'all talk among yourselves, because I don't appreciate it when I have major surgery and I have to uh, get out of the car and go into the pharmacy because they won't let my sister or whoever has picked me up from the hospital pick up my prescription with my ID, with my discharge paper, with this or that, because because Katie or Susie or whatever soccer mom, got a pill popping problem. That's not really, my community issue. Or I go to fill my prescription and the pharmacist is behind the counter questioning me like she worked for the DEA.
Yes, yes,
You questioning me
child.
like you work for the DEA, and first of all, the prescription is written on a pad from an oncologist. If you see that,
Or it don't even have to be a prescription. You could go and be getting something over the counter, and but it's behind the counter, and you like, oh, I was looking for the Tylenol with this, or and they, oh, what do you need that for? Well, you get the third degree,
especially
and I'm like,
where you
I
live,
went to
because
Target
that,
and I
yeah,
asked for something, and the woman, I felt so bad after I asked for it. Now I felt like I did something wrong because she asked me a million and one questions, and it was like Benadryl or something, and I was like, what on earth? Like, what
right,
have I done?
right. I'm not, you know, you've been watching too many episodes of Breaking Bad. you know, and and a lot of this kind of for a while is so funny because I don't watch TV. Um, I um, I don't know if you even remember that about me is I only got a television really uh, uh, for when my kids uh, needed to watch television, and because Deprecia was losing her mind. And but I don't watch television, and I'm not the and I have not had cable on at my house in 8 years.
You're
You
not
know,
missing much. You're not
I
missing
know I'm
much.
not,
You're not
because
missing much at
when
all.
people come to visit me, like one of my friends, especially I have a friend that comes to visit me from Chicago. He will always uh send. He's like, look, I'm gonna Zelle you some money so you can get your cable turned on before I come. So, and because I don't, and it's funny because my grandkids, they'll say, Mimi, you don't have a TV, and I was like, yeah, I have a TV. It's in that cabinet over there, and they're like, really? How come you never turn it on? And I said, oh, I don't have cable, and they're like, you have Wi-Fi, and I was like, well, yeah, you know. So it's and now so but they know when they come here that um they can have tablet time, but that they read. I read, and I mean that's my reading list. I've been plowing through my reading list, and um and I've been in turns sad, mad, um, and just disgusted by things that I'm reading, because it's none of it. I have to balance it out. I balance out reading um, Rothstein stuff, and reading about uh, the about the racism and systemic racism and financing and how it started, and then reading James Baldwin's works, and then reading uh, uh, just reading things This is not accidental. This is not new. This is not the result of a broken system. This is the, it may be an epiphany for some, but it is an obvious uh, result for the rest of us, and it's basically history, and it's it's always been this way, and it's a reason why it's systemic. It's the reason why it's institutional. Those words are very appropriate because, by their definition, they mean that they are fixed, they're considered permanent, they're considered resolute, they're considered inflexible, and they're considered intentionally in their design. So they're operating in an intentional, planned way. Now, some of the consequences may be unexpected and unintended, and that's when white people get caught up in their own nets, and that's when uh, uh, that's a case of, since these systems old rich white men, um, they are, to me, some of the most arrogant uh, creatures to walk the earth. And so they always underestimate everybody, everybody else. They underestimate everyone else, and they overestimate everything about themselves,
Hmm.
you know? And
So what is, because we're winding down our time, and I want to leave our sister friends, in particular Black women, like, what is one piece of advice? What is, like, what would you say, in terms of, we're dealing with this as a community, and but this show, we focus on, our sister friends, Black women, because Black women, we tend to hold everybody up, whether it's Black folks, Latino folks, Asian folks, white folks, it doesn't matter. We that's just what we do. uh,
yeah, you get leadership role by default. If you
yes.
you're in the leadership role by default. If you're a black woman, it's the default. If you are a black mother, then you're the leader. You end up taking the lead because if not for us, frankly, we would still be picking cotton. If not
Hmm.
for the black mother, if not for black women, we would still be picking cotton, because we had to make it. Um, it's a black mother's dream to make it happen, and for her sons and her daughters, you know, however however that is for her family, you know.
So, what would be your advice? Like I said, if you had like one thing to say to Black women, and especially in dealing with the whole COVID, because you personally experienced it. I mean, I've a couple of people I know have passed from COVID, and like you said, with the disparities and the things that's going on in our communities, in terms of the Black communities, and what the difference of what we have to deal with. But you personally had to deal with it on a public level with your brother, your nephew, your family. So, like, what if you had to walk away today, give one piece of advice? What's that one thing you would share to the Black women, in our communities, and who's wrestling and dealing with this?
Well, we already know that we can't rely on anybody else to take care, better care, or care more about ours than we do. So when they don't, I think it's wasted energy to uh, to I mean, yes, be upset and but kind of save your energy for, like, pick your battles. You know, be upset, but you know, put that energy towards something that's going to move the needle in your family's favor. Um, so that is um, definitely be looking for resources, and whether that's networking. Um, I'm I'm filling in the gap. I'm using my expensive university education to fill in the gap for my grandchildren, in terms of remote learning, and to fill in that deficit for their in-person learning experience. And so uh, maybe formulating uh, cohort groups or support groups to take it back to that. We might
Yeah,
have
because
to
that worked
create.
out well for us because that's how we
Right,
survived
that's how
on the
we
campus of
survived in
UC
Santa
Santa
Cruz.
Cruz.
Right, we didn't even know it was called a thing. We were just trying to keep our head above. You know what? We were doing what came naturally. We were like,
Mhm.
this, this is our village. We were like, this is our village. And I think we did what came naturally, and I think that's what you have to do is, one, recognize sometimes the best sign of strength, and this is something that I'm learning, is to know when to ask for help. And that is to know when to ask for help, and to seek it out, and to, you know, that maybe we might have to make our learning pods, and we might have to, because they're not going, they don't care about our kids, they don't care about us. So why are they going to care about our kids if they can't make money off of them, or they can't benefit from us, or there is nothing for, if there isn't something that they can appropriate, take, or steal from us, then we have no use or value to them. And then, so you can't expect for them to have more of a a care for you and yours than you do. And to uh, give yourself a break, um, because if you um, give yourself a break, and remember to treat yourself kindly, and that you deserve, and you have a right to be treated with kindness and dignity and respect, then you can, one, start to uh, get used to that, and want that, and demand that uh, from others, uh, to as a, a standard. You set the standard, and also then you can start uh, treating people who look like you with that same level, because that's what's in you, as a basic, um, um, like, instinct and gut level, to know somebody that looks like you, that's a reflection of you, instead of projecting out that internalized self hatred, and uh, that you've internalized from the dominant society. You can create your own internal script that is more, that you're worthy of it. And then you can, I think that's the first step to that, because it's like, in order to build a community, you have to have a sense of community. In order to build a family, you have to understand and have a sense of family. And you have to, you know, to be a part of something positive, you have to engender something from yourself. And you can't, you can't control anything else outside, but you can start from yourself. And and then align yourself with like-minded or like-intentioned people,
Well,
like-intentioned people.
well, I, this conversation, we could continue to go on, and it sounds like we need to continue to go on and really dig deeper into this, because as a community we have some work to do, and we know that, and we know that we
Yeah,
have some work to do, and we know that we have to we're gonna have to dig deeper into this, because the time is now. There, as my grandma would say, change is coming, but the time is now for us to really step up and make sure that we truly address these issues for the betterment of our families and our communities. So,
right.
again, I thank you, Denise, for coming on today. And, I thank our sister friend, and she's a regular sister friend of the show. So, don't worry, you will get more of her throughout the season. And and I told y'all she was raw, she was uncut and unfiltered, and she's gonna tell it like it is it ti is. And so, um, you want to tell them anyway how people can reach you if they ever, if they need you to reach out to you for speaking engagements or anything, or
Sure. My email is Nisey, NISEY, @me.com. And uh, my Twitter is that Hughley girl, @that Hughley girl. And and here's my Instagram too. I'm not the biggest on there uh, person. Uh, I do manage to hit up Facebook, uh, and I'm Nisey Denise on Facebook.
okay.
Uh,
So,
so,
yeah, you guys, there you have it. You got her
uh,
contact information. So if you need to reach out to her, please do not be DMing me at 2, 3 o'clock in the
do
morning. I
you?
need
I
Lisa's
was
information.
just gonna say, let's just call you.
No, no, no. Y'all got the information. So don't be calling me 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or DMing me. Girl, give me that information. But once again, thank you for tuning in for another episode of We Own the Table, where, like I said, we're no longer begging, borrowing, or stealing a seat at the table, because we built this table.